Have you ever woken up and wondered when your body stopped moving the way it used to? Not all at once, but in those small, quiet ways you only notice when you're reaching for the light switch, climbing the stairs, or bending down to tie your shoes. There's no single moment that marks the change, just a slow unfolding, a whisper that becomes a habit, a stiffness that becomes part of your morning. And then one day, you sit down in your favorite chair and it hits you how still your life has become. Not because you chose stillness, but because the world has grown louder, faster, younger, and you've slowly stepped back. But here's what no one tells you. Strength after 65 isn't about pretending you're 30 again. It's not about lifting weights or running marathons or defying time with sheer will. It's about choosing each day to care for the parts of you that are still very much alive. Your body, your mind, your soul. And yes, they are still alive. Even if your hands have grown slower, even if your memory sometimes drifts, even if the phone rings less often, you are still here. And that means there is still time to live fully, deeply with intention. There's a man I knew named Min. He was 68 when his wife passed. For a while after that, the days blurred together. Coffee in the same cup, news on the same channel, walks shortened, sleep stretched too long in the mornings. He told me once I didn't know if I was resting or just giving up. But what broke that fog wasn't a grand event. It was a single quiet decision. One morning, he stood by the window, looked out at the gray sky, and told himself, "I'm going to sweep the porch today." That's all. Just one small act of care for a home that felt silent. But that sweeping became something more. He started sweeping every morning, then trimming the bushes, then walking to the corner store instead of driving. Slowly, without planning, to Min created a rhythm. And that rhythm brought his strength back, not in his muscles, but in his spirit. Because what makes you strong after 65 isn't just what you do, it's how gently and consistently you show up for yourself. You don't need to overhaul your life. You don't need a planner full of goals or a schedule packed with obligations. You need one or two things you do every day that tell your body, "I am still here." That tell your mind, "You still matter." That remind your soul, "You are still growing." The first habit many overlook is movement, not exercise, not gym routines, just movement. The kind that feels good, the kind that's kind. A walk around the garden, stretching with music playing, rocking gently in a chair as you roll your ankles and breathe. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be consistent. There's an older woman, Bao, who lives on my street. She's well into her 70s now, and every morning at sunrise, she opens her front door and walks barefoot onto the tiled steps. She closes her eyes, raises her arms slowly overhead, and takes 3 deep breaths. That's it. Her neighbors might think it's nothing, but I've watched her do it every morning for years, and she is one of the sharpest, calmest, strongest women I know. Because movement done mindfully isn't about burning calories. It's about staying present in your body, feeling your breath, noticing where the pain is and where the ease still lives. The second habit, one that slips away too easily, is feeding your curiosity. We often think that learning belongs to the young, that after a certain age, our job is to remember not to discover. But your mind, your beautiful, powerful mind, was made to explore. And when it's ignored, it begins to dim. You don't have to enroll in a course or solve complex puzzles. You can start by asking small questions again, reading about places you've never been, listening to music from a culture you've never known, watching a documentary and thinking, "I never knew that." Each time you wonder, you wake up a part of yourself that may have been sleeping. And when your mind wakes up, the rest of you follows. There's a retired teacher named Hoa who keeps a notebook by her bedside. Every night, she writes one thing she learned that day, just one. Some days it's a word she didn't know. Other days it's something a bird did on her windowsill. But in that practice, she keeps herself alive, not just physically, but vibrantly. And then there's the third habit, perhaps the most quietly powerful of them all, sitting with your own thoughts in stillness. Not to solve anything, not to pray for something, just to be. This world teaches us to fill every moment, especially now with phones and screens and noise always within reach. But something sacred happens when you choose to sit in silence, when you place your hand over your chest and listen not to the world but to yourself. You might be surprised by what comes up. Old memories, forgotten joys, grief you didn't finish feeling, hopes you tucked away too neatly. They rise like mist off a morning lake, and you, if you're patient, can hold them all, not with judgment, but with care. Because strength isn't always about doing. Sometimes it's about allowing your body to feel tired and still move gently, allowing your mind to be curious even when others have stopped asking you questions, allowing your soul to be tender and open even after all these years. And in that allowing, something awakens, something soft, something steady. Something strong. There's something beautiful that happens when you stop trying to catch up with the world and instead let it slow down to meet you. So many people as they grow older feel a subtle kind of pressure, not spoken, but felt. A pressure to stay relevant, to stay useful, to stay busy. And while there's nothing wrong with being involved, there's a difference between being active and being at peace. One is driven by fear of being left behind. The other is guided by the joy of showing up where you truly want to be. That's where the deeper habits begin, not the ones anyone sees or praises, but the ones that quietly rebuild your roots. I think about Mr. High, a former bus driver in his 70s, who once told me I spent most of my life driving people somewhere else. Now I just want to arrive in my own life. That simple sentence held a world of meaning. He had spent decades waking early, working late, and putting his own needs at the bottom of the list. Retirement didn't feel like freedom. At first, it felt like falling. No schedules, no passengers, no place to be. But over time, he created his own rhythm, and that rhythm gave him back his sense of purpose. He started his mornings by tending to a small bonsai tree on his balcony. It wasn't just gardening, it was attention, presence. He trimmed, watered, and simply observed every morning without fail. That act of care done in silence grounded him more than any busy schedule ever had. Because one of the most overlooked habits that keeps us strong after 65 is care. Not for others, for ourselves. Tiny, deliberate, daily acts of care. Noticing how you speak to yourself in your head. Feeding your body with foods that give more than they take. Drinking water before your throat goes dry. Taking your medicine not as a burden, but as an offering to your future. These things sound simple, but they are sacred. You are sacred. And when you care for yourself with quiet respect, your whole system responds. Your blood pressure, your digestion, your memory, even your mood. It all starts to feel supported. But let's be honest, it's hard to show up for yourself when your days feel empty. That's why another habit often forgotten is reaching out not to be needed, but to connect. Truly connect. This isn't about chasing people who don't return your calls. It's about opening small doors where real conversation can walk in. Sometimes that looks like waving to the same neighbor every day until a real friendship begins. Sometimes it's joining a local group not to impress, but to be around laughter again. Sometimes it's as simple as sending a letter or a voice message or a memory to someone you haven't spoken to in years. We are not meant to live in silence. And yet so many elders find themselves alone, not because they don't want connection, but because they've grown used to being overlooked, forgotten. But you don't have to wait for someone else to remember you. You can choose to remember yourself. And you can reach out not with fear or desperation, but with openness. You still have stories, questions, laughter, wisdom. All of that is worthy of being shared. I think of Auntie Lan, who lives 2 blocks from me. She started a tradition of writing one postcard every Sunday to someone in her life, distant cousins, childhood friends, former students. Just a simple note, something warm. And the surprising part, many of them wrote back. Not all, but enough to remind her that she was still part of a web of connection threads she could hold in her own hands. And then there's one more habit I believe, with all my heart, is just as vital as movement learning silence. Care and connection. And that's laughter. Not the polite kind. Not the kind you fake at family dinners. but the kind that bubbles up unexpectedly, the kind that surprises even you. It's easy to forget how good that kind of laughter feels when life has been heavy, or routines have been slow, or conversations have been sparse. But laughter has a way of shaking the dust off your soul, of waking up your lungs, of lifting the corners of your spirit. It doesn't take much. An old comedy, a silly memory, a story shared with someone who remembers it too. Even laughing at yourself when you misplace your glasses for the 5th time, only to find them on your head. Laughter doesn't mean nothing hurts. It just means something still lives, and what lives in you matters. You may not be the same physically. Maybe your knees creak, your memory stutters, your balance feels less certain. But that doesn't mean you're fading. It means you are changing, like the sea, like the sky, still powerful, still vast, just moving in a different rhythm now. And in this rhythm, strength looks different. It's not how much you lift, it's how gently you rise. It's not how much you remember, it's how intentionally you experience. It's not how many people need you, it's how deeply you nourish yourself. And when you begin living this way, moving with kindness, learning with wonder, caring with respect, connecting with intention, laughing with lightness, your days no longer blur together. They begin to shine, not brightly perhaps, but steadily, like a lantern carried from one morning to the next. And that steady light, that's what keeps you strong. Once these habits begin to root themselves into your days, not perfectly, not all at once, but gently, like rain settling into soil, you start to feel a shift. Not always dramatic. Sometimes it's just a moment, a clearer thought, a steadier step, a breath that feels more like yours again. There's no applause. No one else may even notice, but you do. Because for the first time in a while, you're not just getting through the day, you're arriving in it with presence, with awareness, with a quiet kind of ownership. Min the widower, who started by sweeping his porch, told me something that stayed with me. He said, "When I sweep now, I don't do it to keep the house clean. I do it to remind myself that this home is still lived in." He didn't just mean the building, he meant himself. That's what daily habits do. When practiced with care, they remind you that you are still lived in, that your body is still your home, that your mind still has windows open to the sky, that your soul still sings even if softly. And slowly others begin to notice too. Not because you've demanded their attention, not because you've tried to prove your value, but because there's a different energy about you, a calmness, a quiet joy, a steadiness that doesn't cling or chase. Frank, the retired mechanic who had felt adrift after leaving work, shared that once he started walking every morning just around the block, he began seeing the same neighbors. A small nod became a wave. The wave became a hello. Soon, he was stopping to chat. And from those chats came small invitations. Coffee, cards, conversation. He told me, "It wasn't that the world shut me out. I had closed the door from the inside without knowing. But strength brings doors back open. And here's the beautiful part. When you no longer rely on others to fill your cup, they start to notice the fullness in you. You become someone. People want to be around, not because you're doing anything extraordinary, but because you carry something rare. Peace with yourself. Your children might not say it out loud, but they feel it. Your friends may not comment directly, but they're drawn to it. It's not youth you radiate, it's presence. And presence is magnetic. When you sit at a family dinner, you're no longer trying to keep up. You're rooted. When you speak slowly because your words come from clarity, not urgency. When you move deliberately, not to impress, but because you can. That kind of strength is contagious. It's not the kind that others envy. It's the kind that others respect, even if they don't have the words for it. And inside, you begin to feel something else pride. Not the flashy kind, the quiet kind. The kind that comes from honoring your days, from choosing to live them, not just count them. Bao, the woman who takes her 3 morning breaths on the porch, once said, "I used to think I needed someone else to give me purpose. Now I realize purpose is how I greet my day, There is such power in small things done consistently, done with love. And maybe that's what this season of life is really asking of you, not to fix everything, not to be young again, but to find joy in the smallest daily devotions. To sit in your favorite chair with a book and truly read, not just pass the time. To chop vegetables for yourself and think, this meal is for me. To water a plant and whisper something kind to it and to yourself. To take 10 steps down the hallway and say, this counts. Because it does. Every act of intention you take is an act of strength. And when you put them together, not perfectly, not rigidly, but gently, they become more than habits. They become your way of being. A way that tells the world I am still here. I still choose life. And I still belong to myself. And the world begins to meet you differently. Not because it changed, but because you did. You no longer measure your day by who calls or visits. You measure it by how true you were to yourself. You no longer feel invisible because you are seen by you. And that is where real strength begins, not with attention, but with self-recognition. You are your own witness. You are your own home. And the more you live from that space, the more every step, every breath, every choice becomes something sacred. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. You don't need to be fast to be strong. You don't need to be surrounded to be full. You only need to keep showing up with your breath, your heart, your presence. And in doing so, you carry something into this world that so many have forgotten the art of being fully alive one day at a time. If you're still here with me, I want to thank you, not just for watching, not just for listening, but for choosing to stay present for yourself. That decision, quiet as it may seem, is one of the most powerful things a person can do, especially in a world that too often forgets to slow down for those who have already walked so far. You've made it through so much, the long years of work, the caring for others, the changes that came without warning, some joyful, some deeply painful. And here you are still standing, still showing up, still open to learning what it means to live fully after 65, not just exist, but live. Maybe you've been feeling a bit adrift lately. Maybe your days have felt too quiet. Or maybe your body has started to feel more like an obstacle than a companion. But if anything from this video reached you, I hope it's this strength doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be youthful. It doesn't have to look like it once did. Sometimes strength is simply showing up for your own life each day with care. Sitting in stillness and letting your breath ground you. Taking a walk not to get somewhere, but to remember how it feels to move. Feeding your body because you deserve to be nourished. Asking a question just to keep your mind curious. Sharing a memory to remind yourself that your story matters. Laughing, stretching, listening, loving. These are not small things. They are holy. And when you choose even one of them each day, you're not just staying strong, you're staying you. There's no finish line, no moment where everything becomes easy. But there is this: each day offers you another chance to come home to yourself, to say, I may be older now, slower, quieter, but I am still full of life. So if you've been wondering how to stay strong, body, mind, and soul, it starts right here. With presence, with intention, with kindness for the person you wake up to each morning. And if this video felt like a warm conversation, if it made you feel seen or steady, or simply reminded you that you're not walking this path alone, I'd love to hear from you. What's one small habit that's helped you feel strong, connected, or alive lately? Or is there one you're thinking of starting? Please share it in the comments. Because when we speak from the heart, no matter our age, it creates something beautiful. A space where others can whisper me too. And if you'd like to keep walking this journey with me, I hope you'll consider clicking subscribe. Not because numbers matter, but because you matter. And because sometimes having one familiar voice in your corner makes all the difference. You've given so much to others in your lifetime. Now it's your turn. To be tended to be honored, to be strengthened not by force, but by presence. So, wherever you are as this video comes to a close, I hope you'll take a moment to sit quietly and place your hand over your heart. Feel it beating, steady, faithful, yours. You are still here. And that in itself is a kind of miracle. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. You're doing better than you think. And I'm so glad you're here.